Welcome to U-Wrench. Today we're working on the Grand Caravan. This is the Mark V, also applies to the Chrysler Town & Country. And in this video we're going to be showing you how to remove your front wheel arch liner, also known as the fender liner. So let's jump in. So first of all, if we look on the front edge, this is our front bumper right here. So we've got these two screws just here. And as you look further back into the wheel arch here, you see you've got these round plastic clips. One right here, and there's another here. And in addition, we've removed our lower guard, but you'll have another plastic clip, absolutely identical, right in there. You can see where we've removed ours. The process for removing that is identical for what you'll see for removing the other ones. And you do not need to remove this lower guard to remove the wheel arch liner. All you need to do is remove that one clip. Now if we go over to the opposite side, you can see we've got the same clips here, one here and another here. And then moving over to the opposite side, again, in our metal here, we've got one screw here and another one just up here. So those are all of the main fittings that are holding this in place. Now just a quick note on these metal screws, as you can see these can get a little bit corroded, they can be a little bit tricky to get out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the heads out using my hook tool first to make sure that I can get the screwdriver in nice and deep because I don't want to round these off, especially if they do have corrosion. So I'm just cleaning out the cross on the head of this screw just to make sure that when I put the screwdriver in it goes in nice and deep. I want to minimise the likelihood of me rounding the screw out. And of course I'll repeat this on the remaining three. So I'm also going to put a little bit of penetration spray in behind these just to help lubricate them up a little bit. I'm using Plus Gas, but things like Liquid Wrench, and also I know that WD-40 do a good penetrant spray that's pretty cheap on Amazon as well. So I'm just going to try and get this behind as best as I can. Just a little bit like that. I'll repeat that on the remaining three as well. And repeat that to remove the other three. So now we've got those four metal screws removed, we need to focus on these clips. Now here's one of these clips that's already been removed. They are just made of plastic, and we've got four of these plus the lower one, so you've got five in total to remove. So the likelihood of at least one of these snapping is very, very high. Now, fortunately, you can buy replacements for these. They're not that expensive, and we will add some links for replacements on Amazon into the video description below. But I can guarantee you won't get five out without breaking at least one. Unfortunately, they're not that strong. So it's always worth having a few of these in stock for replacing when they do snap. Now, the best tool for removing these is one of these, and this is a proper trim removal tool. Again, you can buy these on Amazon, not very expensive, and we'll also add some links for these. Now the benefit of these is you can actually get under the head of the clip fully, so that when you're pulling it out, you're pulling from both sides of the head at the same time. If you try to do this with just like a flathead screwdriver, all you're doing is you're leaving it from one side and it'll just end up folding this thing in half. Even gripping on both sides, it can be hard enough to get these out. But this is the proper tool for the job. And like I said, they're not that expensive, well worth having. So when we're looking at removing these, when they're in, first of all, they're in very, very tight, so it's hard to get anything in under the head. So a good idea to get you started is to grab the whole of the liner, try and get your fingers in behind it, and just lift it forward just a little bit. Give it a bit of a wiggle, just to start loosening it up so you can get something in behind it. And when you do this, try and get your fingers in nice and close to the clip it is that you're trying to loosen up. You don't want to snap anything. So you create a little bit of space now. Another thing you can do to get you started is to get your clip tool in and put it actually in behind the liner, like so. So you've moved that about halfway now. You can come in under the head of the clip and just gently pull that forward. And that is the clip removed. So next I'm going to do exactly the same on this one right here. Remember, if you're working on the passenger side of the car, as we are in this instance, you also have one of these identically just down below here where it connects to the lower panel. Remember, you've got to remove that as well. The process is identical. Another tip for you as well with this tool is So when you put it in, don't just put it in kind of halfway, make sure you try and get it as close and tight in underneath the head as possible. So next up, we've got two identical ones on the other side. So we're going to do exactly the same thing to get those removed. And just a quick tip if you are struggling to get these plastic clips out. When you're levering the head, you might get to a point where it gets really tight and it gets stuck and the sides of the head are almost starting to fold in. It'll look like it's not coming out. So at that point, if you carry on doing it, you stand a strong likelihood of snapping it. So what you want to do is, rather than keep going, just stop a second, leave it there, and then grab it with your hand and see if you can twist it around a little bit, and then try it again. You usually can. Obviously that changes the positions, these little plastic tabby things on the side here. And so if it really gets stuck, like I said, don't just snap it, try twisting it and then do it again. Often that can make quite a big difference. Now before we remove the liner, it's important just to take a quick note for putting it back in a minute, exactly how it fits in. You can see obviously it does fit in behind, just behind this metal of the fender here. The important part is actually right here at the top. Now right in the centre here we've got this metal section. It comes from this little kind of cutout here, goes down, you've got the same little metal cutout there, and again you can see that the fender kind of hooks in behind it. So when you come to put this back in, it's really important that you hook this in properly above this kind of metal bracket that we have here. So for the removal of the liner, what we can do, because there's no centre section here, what we can do is kind of these two wings, if you like, we can almost fold these in towards one another. So you can kind of fold it back in a little bit, and that'll help create a little bit more space as we go. So we'll start on this side. What I'm going to do is, as I mentioned before, I'm going to start moving it in towards the centre. So I'm freeing the edge by moving this, kind of almost pinching it in towards the middle. And then the same on the other side. The liner removed. If you're wondering how the screws are held in, these metal screws down the sides, they actually go directly into the wheel arch liner itself here. Some cars you'll find they have a kind of a plastic bracket on the inside of the bumper. These don't, actually goes directly into the liner. So if I flip that around, this is where that screw goes. Obviously you have the metal in front of that, but it literally just screws straight into that, so there is no bracket. So when you tighten these back up, you've got to be very careful because it's only a thread within the plastic. If you over tighten it, you'll lose the thread in there, and that makes it a lot harder to obviously get it back together properly. So nice and gentle when you come to put those back in. So to put this back in, we're going to do that thing, we're going to pinch it together a little bit. So I'm just going to pinch it in like that, start putting it backward. There we go, so that's our basic position. So let's have a little feel around for it, kind of where it would fit. Remember, the important bit is at the top centre. Remember, you've got that little bit that hooks back in. You want to make sure that this edge hooks back underneath that properly. So I've got that hooked in now on the centre, so I'm just pulling it backward to stop it falling out again. Now next thing to do is try and get the balance right by moving the whole thing to the left or to the right to try and get the holes to line up, ready for these clips to go back in. Fairly close there. Then once you think you've got these aligned correctly, you also want to double check the screw holes in the side here, make sure that you can see the hole ready for the screw to go directly through into. If you can't, then obviously it's not quite in the right position. So next I'm just going to put start the screws off. I'm not putting them in completely, just going to get them started, make sure they're taking the thread nicely through into the liner. I'm just going to get all 4 of these in, because that will help hold this into position, but I'll still have a little bit of movement to fine tune it if required. So I've got my 4 screws in nice and loose, so I still have a bit of movement in it, and I've made sure that I'm still hooked in the centre section right here. Everything is definitely behind all the way around, so we're looking quite good. So the next thing I'm going to do is, whilst pulling this liner forward, I'm going to firm up the 4 outer screws. I'm going to do that before you do the plastic clips on the inside. The reason for that is you'll see if you flex it yourself, as you start doing this, it will start to pull out on the top here. It's important to make sure that this is locked in. These plastic clips have quite a lot of flex in them, as does this section here, and these holes are quite big. So the things to make sure that it's properly aligned is this top edge and the 4 screws. And you'll notice there's actually a little cutout on the liner by the top screw, and it's the same on both sides. Got one of these, so you can just grab that and make sure that you pull that as far underneath the metal edge of the fender as possible, and then we'll snug this screw up. Remember not to over tighten these screws, they're only threaded into plastic. And then again, you've got a little bit that you can grab here, so make sure it's pulled under nice and tight here. And we'll do exactly the same thing on the other side. Remember, we've got that little handle there as well to pull that in and get the bottom 2 metal screws snugged up there as well. So next it's time to put our plastic clips back in. So we're starting on this side, which is the front side. If you kind of push the wheel arch liner up in, you can see, get a nice alignment on both of these holes. That's where we want to try and lock it in place. And these can be a bit stubborn. I've got a rubber mallet here just to get it started. Be careful you don't bend it. There it goes. Same with the other one here. And then I'll get it into the position that I ideally want it to be in, pushing it up nice and tight. Then of course just come over to the other side and do exactly the same thing on the other side as well. Remember, if you're working on the passenger side here, you have this same plastic clip here that joins the wheel arch liner to this lower guard here, so that one needs to go back in as well. So if you're working on the driver's side of the car, you won't have this in the same position because you don't have that same lower guard there. On the driver's side, the principle is exactly the same, but instead of being in this position, you actually have a guard that comes across the bottom of the bumper there, has a little tab in the corner, and that's where the clip passes through into. So the process is exactly the same as all of these clips that we've seen here, 100% identical, it's just in a slightly different position. And so there we have it, that is how to replace the wheel arch liner, also known as the fender liner on the Mark V Grand Caravan. Now before you leave us, please do remember we will be adding those Amazon links into the video description below, both for the trim removal tool and also replacement clips. So if you like what we do here at U-Wrench, please be sure to help support us and please use those Amazon links. Also, before you leave us, can you take 1 second out of your busy schedule just to please be sure to at least hit that like button for us. It really does help us out. And you also might want to consider subscribing. We've got loads more great videos on these cars on our YouTube channel, just waiting for you to take a look at. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.